Let me show you what happens when you spend years in Boston telling the younger generation that police are the problem. I don't know if you've seen this clip yet or not. You probably haven't. I don't think they played this on the news. This is something that the news would 100% stay away from. 100%. Let me show you what happened here. This police officer is trying to arrest and or detain this guy, and nobody is helping. People are throwing bottles. People are spitting on this guy. It is, I don't even have words to say what the hell is going on here, but it is completely uncalled for. The other crazy thing is he's the only officer there. He's trying to call something in maybe to get more officers there. But you hear the bottles, you see all the garbage. I don't know what the pop was. God only knows.
Yo, go home, my friend.
And they're telling this guy to go home. So I think I have another clip here somewhere. Hang on. Here's another one. This is him, I think, trying to get somebody off a moped or something. I don't know what's going on in this clip exactly. Yeah, looks like a moped. Or a dirt bike or something like that. But here's the reality. Here's what's really going on here. I'm going to show you more information as well. You know, when you spend multiple years through multiple politicians in this legislature that, you know, effectively ran on defunding the police, but didn't necessarily say defund the police, this is what happens. These are the results, or these are the consequences of your actions. This is what is happening in Boston today. And there's a couple other things here. So this is what the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association president, Larry Calderoni, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He said, before a cop gets killed, I'm calling on every elected member of Boston City Council to condemn the attack on our officer. The fact that so many have remained silent is a slap in the face to every hardworking cop in the city. Denounce the violence, unless, of course, you're okay with Boston feeling more like Chicago. We all know what Chicago is like, okay? At least I think most of us do. They are constantly in the news because, and you may or may not know this, but people like Mayor Wu, people like Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson, people like New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and other people across the way, like Karen Bass out of LA, you know, these people end up getting donations on the back end from these like highly progressive organizations. And what they end up doing is they end up spitting a whole bunch of rhetoric out over the last couple years, by the way. And what it does is they've effectively changed the public sentiment on police. That's what happened, guys. That's really what happens. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you some statistics in a couple minutes here. If you don't believe me, Boston police, and I think I said this even last year, Boston police is down hundreds upon hundreds of officers. They've lost roughly, from memory, I think around 7% of their police force over the past 5 years. If you're watching, listen, if you're watching this video, and I understand what I just showed you doesn't look good, right? But if you're watching this video and you were thinking about becoming an officer or something like that, reach out to the BPD. I mean, they need the officers. They 100% need the officers. Wait until I show you the overtime. Like, these people are so overworked that it is insane. I don't know how you expect anybody to work like 16-hour days every single day and there not be a problem. Okay, I mean, it's completely uncalled for. And as a matter of fact, this is what happened after these incidents. So you need to remember. Let me pull something up here too. I'm going to play you another video in a couple minutes. But you need to remember, over the past like 3 weeks to 4 weeks, there have been like, what, 3 to 4 different occurrences of multiple shootings in Boston. People died, people are injured. It's completely crazy. I don't know how the members of the communities where this is happening are not speaking up louder. They're not being more vocal about these things. And then obviously, when you try to send a cop into Dorchester, all he does is get harassed. All he does is get harassed. It's insane. The only people with any balls, so Erin Murphy sent out, she sent this letter to the probably the city council, right? She said the recent attack on a Boston police officer must be condemned clearly and without hesitation by every elected official in our city. You need to remember, if these people don't call things out, even if it's a bad take, if it's a good take, whatever it is, if you don't say anything at all, it just looks awful. Okay, it just looks awful because they're more than likely okay with the circumstances. They are more than likely okay with the circumstances. Our officers put themselves in harm's way every day to protect our neighborhoods. They deserve respect, support, and the confidence that city leaders will stand with them when they are attacked. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. I am calling on the mayor, that's Michelle Wu, and every member of the city council to condemn attacks on police, support all first responders, and make recruiting, hiring, and retaining more Boston police officers an urgent priority. We're going to get into a lot of this stuff today. I don't know how long this video will be, but let me show you a clip, okay? Let me take you back in time. This is from NBC 10 Boston. This is 5 years ago. Okay, this is 5 years ago with Mayor Michelle Wu. She's around my age. I'm 41. I think she's either 40, so she was probably like 35, 36 at the time. Watch this if you want to get an understanding of what is happening.
I think people are speaking up because of that.
Sorry, I watch everything at like 10x speed. One second, because I had to find the clip.
We are now at the point where it's time. It's beyond time to figure out how we get rid of the real underlying virus in our country, which is racism.
Right. And you've been very vocal.
She is the most, in my opinion, racist mayor in the country, at least one of them. She disenfranchises. You can't lift everybody up while disenfranchising different groups of people. And that's what she has done. That is, I understand what she's trying to do. She's trying to like have this like performative course correction or something like that. But in the wake of that, all you end up doing is disenfranchising other people. You can't do it that way.
About defunding the police departments. How do you envision a future with
Let me replay that again.
Police? Right. And you've been very vocal about defunding the police departments.
Need I say more? Need I say more? All of these progressives and all of these Democrats, they all jumped on the bandwagon. Don't get me wrong here, by the way. Not all police are good. Not all police are bad. This applies to every single career, every single profession, every single business. You're going to have people that are both good and bad. That's the way it unfortunately goes. That is just the way of life, right? But you can't disenfranchise an entire police force across the entire country because there's a couple of bad actors there. Like you can't do that. It's going to be, you end up not living in some levels of a civil society.
How do you envision a future with defunded police departments?
Yeah. And, I was having a conversation with some of the youth activists this morning and, a huge coalition where
we were your donors
just really wanting to emphasize the idea that when people say defund, like, first of all, there's a whole bunch of a range of opinions of what folks actually mean. And I think some of us maybe aren't quite all the way there in terms of like full abolition of police and law enforcement and all that. And then there's a range of, all the way up to we're reallocating resources. But no matter where you are.
By the way, when she was a city councilor, she was, I believe, calling for a cut of 10% of the overall BPD. That's when she was a counselor.
On that range, what's clear, I think what everyone agrees on is that we are not investing enough in communities, right?
And what she's doing here, by the way, and people have been asking, why do I pause the video? Why don't I let it play through and give commentary after the fact? Because if I don't, this video I'm filming as we speak will get flagged. Somebody will flag this video, so I have to do it, right? But basically what these people do, she's not outright saying, she didn't disagree with the fact that This woman called her out on her thoughts about defunding the police or her perspective on defunding the police, but they don't need to do that. All they need to do is pivot to the point where they reallocate resources. So that was her plan when she was running for mayor of Boston. This is at the time when she was still a counselor, right? So instead of, like, let's say, removing all police funding, right, aka defund the police, another more politically correct and maybe not radical way of doing that is by taking funds from the police and putting them into other programs like social services, right? That's what's going on here.
And it's a question of how do we want to prioritize the limited resources and the public dollars that we have. The first place that it should go probably shouldn't be to trying to solve problems way at the end after people have already been hurt, after, you know, when bringing in that kind of background also introduces a whole bunch of risks, particularly
what she's saying is bringing in more police,
particularly to Black residents. So it's more about how do we set up the investments in what we want to see from the beginning, in public health, in housing stability, in food access, in mental health, in transit access. So there are a whole bunch of things where we just want to see.
All of those things, you could have two truths at the same time, by the way. If you want to have, you know, your public health, housing stability, all of those things, like, she has every right to have funds for those things. But you also don't have the right to rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's what she was attempting to do. And it didn't work out. And I'm going to explain why in a little bit.
A better representation of how we actually solve the underlying issues.
I saw that you submitted that 17F order, which is supposed to hold the city accountable for their military grade weapons, but especially the way that they've been using it against protesters. Why do you think that bill, or, you know, why is it so important to police reform?
I don't think she actually talks about what's in the bill itself, but the bill itself was basically some kind of internal subpoena that she had filed. And I don't know if you remember, but back during the BLM stuff would happen with George Floyd, there was a lot of protests around, right? Like, cities were burning, okay? Cities, that was like the peacefully somewhat peacefully protesting or whatever the hell it was. So what she wanted to do is, like, knock out different levels of no-knock warrants. She wanted to eliminate any kind of, like, military grade weapons and equipment, stuff like, you know, rubber bullets or tear gas and stuff like that, in order, like, stuff that you effectively need in order to sometimes debilitate a crowd of people that are absolutely going nuts. That's something that she filed.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, because I think this is one of the things that the city council, one of the tools that the city council has that nobody really knows about.
Yeah, I did some research on it.
It's called 17F, and everyone's like, what does that even mean? It's basically the equivalent of an internal subpoena between branches of government. So the city charter gives councilors the power to put forth what's called a 17F order, which requires the administration, the mayor and his administration, to respond to questions or information that we're asking for within 7 days. And if the council as a whole votes to pass that order on, the clock kind of starts ticking as soon as the administration receives it. They have 7 days to respond. And so a number of colleagues actually submitted different requests. One of the ones, as you mentioned, was from me to figure out what are we talking about specifically in terms of the militarization of Boston police. Or we know, again, Boston's part of this national.
What she wants to do is take any kind of weapons that work against protesters away. That's what this was about. And they had 7 days. Menino had 7 days to respond to this. But we don't have to watch this entire thing. I don't want to make this video too long. But when you're out here, right, and you're running on these things, which, by the way, she did, what ended up happening next is what I think is most important. And it's not only the, kind of this, if you're like a criminal or borderline criminal, these people feel like they're holier than thou, because a lot of times I think what's happening here is that a lot of their crimes are either underreported or they just don't get reported at all. That's why it's very easy to cherry pick data in terms of calling yourself the safest major city when you have a low homicide rate. And don't get me wrong, that is good, 110% if you have a low homicide rate, right? But if everything beneath that starts to increase exponentially, you know you have some levels of a problem. And now it has escalated to the point where people could just get away with attacking police. And that's really what is going on here. 100% what is going on. So shout out to Aaron Murphy for putting this together, and also Ed Flynn. I don't agree with everything Ed Flynn does, okay? Let's see. Here we go. I was trying to find him. I don't agree with everything Ed Flynn does, right? But he understands if there's a like, at least to this, in pertaining specifically to this, like, somebody needs to say something. Where is the mayor? Where is Michelle Wu when all of this is happening? Okay? Where is she? She's missing. She's MIA. Nobody could find her.
Street. We're 1 block away from the theater district, 1 block away from Bay Village, 1 block away from downtown Boston and Chinatown. Triple shooting here last night. We have to address the public safety and violence that's taking place in our city. We have to acknowledge that we don't have enough police officers in the city of Boston. We're terribly understaffed. It's unsafe now for police officers and residents. We need to address retention, recruitment, and respect police officers and their families. We can't do this alone.
100%.
Police and their families are part of the solution. Thank you.
By the way, that's why I'm making this video. I'm making this video to try to help BPD, because they clearly need the help. Because if you're constantly framing policing through, you know, this political lens, or a lens of like systemic racism or something like that, guess what it's going to do? It's going to reduce the moral authority of these officers, and you just saw what happened. That's what is going on, and that's the way the residents inside of Boston views these officers because of the rhetoric over the last couple of years. When you have a crowd in Dorchester and they see a cop that's struggling, pushing them over, throwing bottles, spitting on them, whatever the hell they're doing, they no longer see this guy having a legitimate job. They see him as part of the problem. Right? They see this guy as part of the problem, not part of the solution. And when you run on these things, like Michelle Wu, or like, Ayanna Pressley is even worse with this stuff, guess what's going to happen? There is going to be unrest inside of these communities. 110%. That is just the way that it goes, right? It's cause and effect. These are the consequences for the words that these people put together. That's what's going on here. And then what happened now is that Boston police is down between like 400 or 500 officers. And it's been this way for a very, very long time. Actually, let me see if I can find one more clip here. Howie Carr had, I hope he doesn't mind me playing the clip. Let me see if I could find it. Howie Carr had a clip of, no, I don't think I have it. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I apologize. Howie Carr. Here it is. Here.
Takeovers.
This is that cop. This is that cop talking, by the way.
And police officers are getting assaulted. This officer's by himself on a street takeover, ends up in the middle of the crowd, unfortunately. The moped comes by. He attempts to stop it. He attempts to clear the street. Instead, it becomes a hand-to-hand combat.
He's a fat guy on top of everything else. Let's be honest.
He was a large guy, but instead of anyone helping the officer, they throw cups at him, water bottles at him, alcohol at him, and this is the kind of crap that's going on in the city every weekend in Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury, and we can't get any elected officials or any media to even report.
That's why we're doing this, okay? That's why this channel was created in the first place, to show people. I know how we covered it. I know Mass Daily News has been talking about this, but any kind of attention that could be brought to the issues that are coming. I don't want Boston to end up like Chicago, okay? I'll just come out and say it. That's what we don't want to happen. Just like he said, I don't want to see that happen, right?
Report on it.
It's very different than a couple of weeks ago when the carjacking occurred in Mattapan Square on Blue Hill Avenue. It looked like it was a civilian that was helping out.
It was a civilian.
Where were the good citizens in Dorchester the other night, like the guy in Mattapan?
There's a lot of things going wrong with our city council and within the city of Boston. We have these...
So that's what is going on. Now, let me show you a couple other things here. Let me see if I could pull this up. Hold on one second. I'm not sure if I have this ready. Let me see. What I was going to show you was Boston's, I'll just talk about it. I was going to show you some of Boston's Instagram account, right? So Boston PD has an Instagram account with like maybe 1,000 followers or something like that. And they have like 92 posts over the course. Like this is specifically for recruitment, by the way. They have like 92 posts over the course of the last like maybe 2 or 3 years or something like that. Like there's barely nothing. And then in comparison, if you go over to the Tewksbury PD page, there's like, I think they have like 8,000 or 9,000 followers. They're always posting things with kids and events and all these other things. Guys, I'm not trying to criticize you, right? But you got to do something in order to bring people in, right? I understand people are overworked. I understand you guys are busy. I understand that, you know, there's not enough police that are there, but there needs to be an equal, and I'm not saying Instagram is a be all end all, right? I'm guilty of this too. I barely post on Instagram, but what I am trying to say is if you have a chronic problem, which you seem to have, you need to figure out different ways to bolster your recruitment, right? Because it's hard enough already. It's hard enough already because people don't want to become cops. So let me show you this. This is the 2025 Boston Police Department pay. This is their regular pay. This is what some of them grossed, okay? Regular pay for a lot of these people, obviously some are lieutenants and stuff like that, right? Probably a lieutenant at the top here. $194,000 with a total gross of $498,000. That's from overtime. That's from other, which I don't exactly know what that category is. If you're a Boston police officer, please let me know. Detail and then education. So maybe educating potential cadets, spending your time and resources doing that. That's what I'm assuming, right? I don't know everything, but that's what I'm assuming. But I believe in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, this number, which I hope you could see at the bottom of the screen, this number, $183 million in overtime. I'm not pointing this out to say that these guys don't need overtime. That's not what I'm trying to say here, okay? What I am trying to say is that the overtime is necessary because they are understaffed. They are understaffed because of issues like you just saw. Who wants to be a police officer when you are demoralized? Nobody respects you. People spit on you. They're throwing bottles at you. They're throwing alcohol at you. And you can't even detain somebody. And not only that, but you can't even have the public. Not that I'm saying that you guys should go and help because, you know, you could put yourself in a bad situation, but nobody even tried. Okay, nobody even tried. They just stood there filming or yelling and screaming or whatever, telling this cop to go home. They tell this cop to go home because these people think that they own the streets. That's the reality of what's going on. So after seeing something like that, who is going to want to sign up to be a police officer? Well, the fact remains, I think that there probably is some brave people out there that could really do a good job with BPD. Clearly, they need the help. Otherwise, this overtime metric, and by the way, this is another little sneaky trick. Now, I'm not sure about this, and if you're an anonymous officer, you could let me know. I'm assuming this, okay? I'm alleging this. But I would think that what's happening with the overtime, it's not only about the lack of police. That is definitely high on the tier list, right? But another level to that is that I don't think within, and again, I could be wrong on this, I could be wrong, but I think what happens here is that if I go to the gross, and I'll just pull this up one more time, if I go to the gross, it's roughly around, let's just call it we'll call it $2.45 billion, right? Over the course, and again, I believe this was for 2025. $2.45 billion. So you got to think to yourself, if overtime is at $183 million, I think that the reason that you see this happening is because, number one, when the budget is released, right, the number one thing a lot of these progressives will scrutinize and criticize is the police budget. So if that, and overtime is not on there, right? Like, I don't think there's an allocation. There may be a general allocation for like overtime on the budget itself, but I don't know if it's actually itemized in, let's say, for police, right? So I'm assuming that they purposely keep the numbers low, meaning they try to deflate the total gross that is going to Boston cops, right? And then they could pay the overtime on the back end, which nobody is really looking at because it's probably ambiguous. I'm assuming this, I am alleging this, but I'm like, if it were me, that's what I would do. If I was one of these like progressive nuts that is getting donations on the back end from all of these, Tides and George Soros linked organizations, and I'm not showing like a drop in police, let's say the policing fund, it's not going to look good. So what's the most logical way to try to, be a little bit more ambiguous? I would think not hire more officers, number one, and number two, just pay people the damn overtime. The overtime is more money in a lot of cases here than what people are making as their regular pay. Okay, so I think that's a way to effectively hide it from progressives that would call it out. Hey, your policing budget went up by X, Y, or Z. You see what I'm saying? So there's a whole slew of issues when it comes to policing. And you could damn well bet that this isn't only happening in Boston. It's just Boston is a very progressive city. But if I'm willing to bet if I were to look at Cambridge, or I were to look at Somerville, or I were to look at any of these other very progressive cities, they're probably, I would think, having the same exact problems as Boston when it comes to the police just being completely demoralized. People literally, throwing bottles at them and all these other things. It's probably going on statewide, to be honest with you, but it's probably more prevalent, I would think, in the more progressive cities or towns. 100%. So, last call. If you guys know anybody that's looking to join BPD or whatever, put them in that direction, right? Put them in that direction. There needs to be better and by the way, BPD, there needs to be better messaging, right? You need to have somebody that is the face of the Instagram account, the face of a marketing campaign or something like that in order to get people motivated. Right? That's what needs to happen. You should show them what you do in the communities. You should highlight different restaurants or different diners you go to or whatever it may be. Like, that's what you should do. You should make like these little mini series or something like that. I'm just spitballing here, right? But if I was somebody that was interested in the police and I saw all of these other things beside, somebody getting bottles thrown at them in the middle of the street in Dorchester, I think that it could motivate some people. That's all I'm trying to say. So maybe Mayor Wu will watch the video and give a tip in your cup for like a marketing budget or something like that. But otherwise, guys, I feel sorry for you guys. I do. I feel sorry for anybody that's kind of like overworked. I know that they're making money and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. But when you're working in a position that nobody likes you, nobody respects you, the counselors don't like you or respect you, the politicians don't like you and respect you, the mayor of the city you're working in hates your guts, I don't know if there's any amount of money that could, kind of curb that feeling, right? So that's it for today's video, guys. I don't know if I'll be filming tomorrow. We're going to go away for a couple of days because of the 4th. Hopefully, you guys have your flags away so you don't interrupt any of the birds. I know that there's a big problem when it comes to birds flying into flags or something like that. So just be careful out there. This is a public service announcement. And, God bless you guys. And that's it.